to thank all of you very much for coming today. I'm so excited to share this find with you. I have been diving for about 35 years, and it is very true. Our Connecticut River Valley, but not just the whole Connecticut River, being one of the 14 heritage rivers in the United States, it is so amazing to me what we have in the river. It's very rare that I ever do a dive in the Connecticut River without finding something very historical. I have found forts, I have found parts of boats, I have found all kinds of things, and traveling around the world I found airplanes and shipwrecks, but this is a very exciting find for me, and I'll tell you how I got into even looking for this. So, about 30 years ago, I decided when I was diving in part of the Connecticut River in Brattleboro, I found a lot of bricks and a lot of slate from the roofs of what I believe was Fort Dummer that was built in 1724. So my original thought was I was going to do research about this and try to work with the archaeologists and the historical societies on this project. But just strangely enough, one day, my second week into the search, I came across this. And this was a picture that was in the middle of all the Fort Dummer research information I was doing. And I looked at it and I said, this is a drawing. This is a drawing by someone. Well, I looked into who it was a drawing by. It was a drawing by Larkin Mead. Larkin Mead was born in New Hampshire and lived in Brattleboro, Vermont. It was one of the most incredible sculptors of all time. And he was born in the late 1800s, and he lived till 1910. He was 10 years old when he did this drawing. He was with his father, and he saw what was called Indian Rock in the West River near the junction of the Connecticut River and Brattleboro. There was something about this. I have found a lot of things, but I have never found history like this that is really kind of unknown, as far as I know, exactly when it was done and who did it. But his drawing was pretty accurate. This drawing is on a face in all my research. It's on a wall of rock that's 12 feet long, 8 to 10 feet wide, and it has 5 eagles or thunderbirds, a person, a deer, and what appears to be 2 snakes or 2 eels. In 1866, Professor Hitchcock from Amherst College actually took photos of this. And boy, did it take a lot of time to track these down, because they went to a museum that disbanded, and all the information from this museum went to many other museums. And it took a lot of calls and a lot of travel, but this was so exciting to me to find these original photos from 1866. These, the thunderbirds or eagles, are approximately 8 inches long and 5 inches wide. And in my research, it has been found and described that they were carved deeper than the petroglyphs at the Bellows Falls site, which we'll be talking about in a few moments, even in more depth. So in all of this research, and I was all excited about doing Fort Dummer, there was something that really attracted me to trying to find this. And then I had to find out, why exactly is this not there anymore? Well, here's one of the pencil drawings that were done in 1866 by Professor Hitchcock, an actual rubbing of one of the thunderbirds. And I'll tell you and explain what happened. For the location of this is the Brattleboro Retreat Meadows, which is now underwater. The Connecticut River, this is the West River, and then it empties into the Connecticut River. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Brattleboro to the Marina Restaurant, which is on the banks of the north side of the West River. So that restaurant's about here. And at one time, this river was totally different in here. And the Brattleboro Retreat Meadows was not underwater. It was, as a matter of fact, we'll look at some slides of how that used to be. So I was thinking, why is this missing? Why didn't anyone document this? How could this be underwater? Well, in 1909, the Vernon Dam was put in. New England Power thought that the water level would only go up about 5 feet, but it went up in excess of 15 feet. So all these things that were close to the water's edge were underwater for the first time and not above water anymore. And not just these significant petroglyph inscriptions on in these carvings, but many buildings. And as a matter of fact, this is a picture of the Brattleboro Retreat Meadows. They used to have a landing strip there, a landing strip and a beautiful park, and that is also underwater. And a lot of you may have kayaked there. It's beautiful kayaking, lots of birds. You can actually kayak, and you're only over about 8 feet of water, and you can see the bottom. But where I'm diving is actually, this is the Retreat Meadow, but I'm actually diving around this corner in what's called the cove. The picture I just showed you is the meadows are right in back of here, and the Brattleboro Retreat buildings are down in here. Those meadows were right in back here. This is a very historical place in history, a very spiritual place for Native Americans. It was called the Cove, and in all my research, it talked about this was such an incredible gathering place. The Native Americans grew Indian corn in the meadows here, where the retreat meadows are. The fishing was incredibly significant here before the West River emptied into the Connecticut River. And there's so much information about that I've read, quote, the salmon were so thick, it gave you the image that you could walk across their back from one side of the West River to the other. That's how thick the salmon were here. So in my search, I knew it was underwater because of what happened with the dam. But no one documented exactly where this is. I have about 800 hours of research into finding out the exact location, and I couldn't find anything about the exact location. I found a lot of theories. It might be here, it might be there. Well, theories are amazing, because I looked for an airplane for 7 years that was supposed to be up here, and it was down here, 26 miles difference. So theories can be very interesting. But I looked and spent a lot of hours. I've been looking for about 30 years, but I only did, I don't know how many hours a year. Every year I dove there, but the last 3 years I decided to really, really look for this very seriously. Every time, well, I shouldn't say every time, but most every time I'm diving in that cove, I have eagles, anywhere from 1 to 3. And they're right over my head, sitting in the tree. And when I come up to change tanks or take a compass reading or see exactly what I've covered underwater, so often they're over my head. So far, they haven't gone to the bathroom on me yet. But I started thinking, why are these eagles here? And then I thought, you know how they love to swoosh down and grab fish out of the water? My bubbles look pretty strange underwater to the surface. So I wondered, you know, am I going to have an eagle coming down trying to grab me? Or are they there for another reason? I don't know. But for whatever reason, it was really such a sight to see, to come up from the water and look up, and they would be over my head most of the time. Again, this is a picture of the cove. And this is the boat. This is a 25-year-old pontoon boat that works great for me. And this is that famous cove again, right in here. Back when this happened in 1909, the New England Power, they were really getting concerned about the water that went into the meadow behind those trees. So they built a pump house right here and a dike right here to try to pump the water out of the meadow to make it dry. It didn't work. So if you like to kayak, this is a great kayaking place. You can kind of kayak right through that opening and go into the great big meadow. But I got really worried after searching and searching all these years and all these hours. I did 68 dives last year, and those dives are approximately 2 hours each underwater. So I had a lot of hours. And the year before, it was closer to 70 dives, and the year before that, it was closer to 100. And I've been underwater starting from the Connecticut River, where the West River empties into the Connecticut River, and uncovering rock ledge by hand. The rock ledge, a lot of it is vertical, and I'd be moving the silt, and sometimes it's only a few inches deep, but as I get deeper, where it starts to angle in a 90-degree angle, it becomes 5 inches, 6 inches, 2 feet. And I have a methodical way I've been doing this. And I've been going from east to west, and I am sometimes in 2 or 3 feet of sand, silt, and mud. I felt like a construction worker more than a diver. But I started getting really discouraged because I did so much research and I couldn't find them. And maybe it was meant to be that I didn't find them, but they were above the water at one time, so I was hoping. And I kind of had, and it's, well, I guess I'll tell you about the inspirational day I had, but this is, again, part of the cove, and as you can see, there's a lot of rock ledge like this, but then it goes underwater and then comes way out, and where it comes way out, there's a possibility it's on those rocks as well. And out here's where I'm removing 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 3 feet of sand and silt, and here, when I'm underwater, it's only a few inches because of the way that the current works and such. Interestingly, this is made between, right about where the pump house is. There's a wonderful little sanctuary in this area, and when you stand there, it's a very spiritual feeling. You're looking over at the meadows, and on the other side, this way, you're looking at the cove. And it's a very beautiful place, very beautiful. And this is what I want you to see I've been doing and what I'm up against. I was so excited because this is the bridge down here on Route 5 in Brattleboro. The Marina Restaurant would be over here, and this is the South Shore. And I have been working my way all the way up here underwater. And I was so excited I was getting closer probably to find it because now I have to go into the cove and that whole area. But I was so excited until I found in my research not too long ago that. That is what the West River looks like. The Connecticut's over here, and that's what the West River looked like before the dam was put in. And that picture I just showed you, I'm up here. I was so excited about what I've been doing because I started so far up here, and I've been covering underwater all along here. But look, 15 feet. And that's what what it looked like originally. So for me to be here, and look at how high the water is. I have moved so much sand and silt. Oh my God. I feel like really a construction worker. So I was starting to get discouraged even before I saw that. Even before I saw that. But I'm inspired. I'll tell you why. I've got a lot of great things going on. So there's a side-by-side picture to show you what's going on. Well, when I'm underwater, it's a really cool, great feeling. And you have all these fish, bass, that are very, very much attached to you. Why are they attached to you? Because your fins are going up and down, you're kicking up sand, you're kicking up silt. And they love you because you're kicking up crayfish and all kinds of things I like to eat. So they actually start, this guy we named George. George is every dive. I jump in off my boat. I'm not joking. He comes up to me so fast, and if I don't feed him right away, he bangs up against my mask. George wants me to find the petroglyphs, maybe, but maybe not. Because if I'm not there anymore, he doesn't get all these goodies, I guess. But George is just a typical example. This is one fish that's 7 pounds. So sometimes I'll be diving under there all day, and they're right next to me. And if I'm fanning away and I'm searching and digging sand and I stop feeding them, they're swimming under my arms, they're swimming between my legs, they're banging on my mask. I'm like, all right, guys, move. But this is amazing. And sometimes when I come up to change tanks after being underwater 2 hours, sometimes fishermen will be going by and they're bass boats, and they'll say, hey, did you see any bass down there? And I'd be like, yeah, they're under the bridge over there. I'm so attached to these. I mean, you could tell them, some of them have little scars on them and everything, and they're really healthy though. And it's so wonderful. Back, diving 30 years ago for the underwater rescue team, the water depth was, not depth, but we could only see maybe 3 or 4 inches in front of us. And over the 30 years of, well, not even more than 30 years of protecting, but in the last 10 years, especially with the effort of all the watershed councils and protection, it is so wonderful. Sometimes I can dive in the main channel of the river and have up to 20-foot visibility now. And the fish health is so good. And it makes me really happy. And if George saw that, that would make him really happy. These are crayfish. So sometimes when I take a break from my regular searching, I know this sounds awful, but they love crayfish. So sometimes I'll pick one up like a little lobster and hold it in my hand, and George will come right over and eat it. And it amazes me how big big crayfish they can swallow with the claws biting them all the way down. They must have no feelings. Anyway, speaking of the clarity of the water, I am so happy to say that in the last 10 years especially, this is a mud puppy, and mud puppies are really awesome. They have little legs. If you've never seen a little mud puppy, there's their little legs. And they sort of look like a big salamander. He's underneath a log. But I went on the other side, took a picture in the back side of him. And there's his little legs. The other one's tucked in here. Mud puppies need very clean water to survive. And I'm seeing more and more families of mud puppies, which is a great sign about the condition of our waters. And I'm really, really thrilled. And that's why I showed you that. Also, why I'm showing you this picture is the main channel of the Connecticut River is really beautiful. It's very hard-packed gravel, rock. It's beautiful down there. I know sometimes when you're on the side where there's been some erosion or, boat action, it's very, very muddy from the erosion when you first start in. But after you get past that muddy part, when you're walking in and you're up to your knees sometimes in mud or your ankles, it's beautiful. And it looks like that. I have found so much more in the last 10 years because of the clarity of the water. This little guy, I apologize because I forgot my notes on his technical name, but I think it's some mayfly or something that this guy, you never know what you're going to find. I mean, one day I picked up this board, turned it over, and this guy was staring at me. And I'm not sure. And I apologize for not having my notes with me on what that is, but you just never know what you're going to find. So back to the petroglyph search. This is a sandy part. I've used everything. My hand, brooms. This is from my fireplace. I use all kinds of things to remove the sand. I don't want to scratch the rock in any way in case I find it. So I'm really careful, but at the same time, I have to cover a lot of sand. And this is like the area that I'm working in where it's about 2 feet deep. So sometimes I don't really get too far. I always start where it's kind of high and I'm working my way down so that the sand, I'm trying to work it with a current to go out toward the Connecticut River. So I have this path going on from east to west. And then I had so much uncovered and I was so excited, and Hurricane Irene came. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hurricane Irene, before I found anything. Hurricane Irene brought in another couple feet of sand where I had already worked, but more where I hadn't uncovered. So my work was really cut out for me, and I have a more difficult time searching in the deeper part. So that's me in the water, getting ready to do a dive. So a little while back, a couple years ago, after Hurricane Irene, when I was feeling really down from not finding anything after all this searching, I was so excited to find initials carved in the rock underwater. Well, what does that mean? That means that rock was above water at one time. Yay! I found something finally that was carved that was above the water. And this day the water level was quite low. So this is at about 14 feet of water, actually. It was low that day. But anyway, this was really exciting. NLD, but as you can see, there's part of another letter over here. And where I have my gauge, there wasn't one under here. So I don't know what this was. But I did so much research. I was so excited, like NLD, NLD, and I was looking up names and the 1800s and the 1700s, but I couldn't find an answer. But what I was so excited about was this was above water. Good sign. So I'm just going to take a few minutes here and talk a little bit more about my search, because I'm going to show you some other interesting things in a minute. So about 30 years ago, I heard of this archaeologist by the name of Ed Lennox. And I'm just going to take a break from going further on this for a moment. Ed Lennox, for any of you, I haven't met him yet, but I've spoken with him. He has these great books about various theories in his research as far as, and it's all northeastern petroglyphs. And what his theory is about what the carvings mean. Well, I've been fortunate enough to meet some Native American wonderful archaeologists of history of their culture who have shared a number of theories with me, which I won't go into because I don't feel like I'm well-versed in it and I don't want to make a mistake. But for some of these symbols could actually, they always have a very significant meaning as to where they are, such as Bellows Falls, Great Falls. Bellows Falls was so beautiful, the Great Falls, and very significant petroglyphs there, and very significant petroglyphs here. So the two sites that I'm looking for, there's two known sites here. So one is the site that I'm looking for, my 12, not my, but the 12-foot wide, long, 8-foot wide, five thunderbirds, a person, a horse or dog or deer, not totally sure, and 2 eagles or 2 eels. I sometimes wonder if the eels could signify lamprey eels, because lamprey eels before the dams used to come up every spring, and they would come up the river in great numbers, and they would die, and they're different than the ocean ones. They would actually die, and I don't know if it had anything to do with that, but I just can't help wonder what it is. So I've been looking for this massive, I thought, how can I not find this? It's 12 feet. But when you see all the area I'm covering and uncovering, it's kind of clear to see that it's a big job. And then there was another site, one other known petroglyph in the area that was documented in 1806. And I knew I would never find that one because it's so small, and it's about 8 inches wide, and it's all by itself. And it was documented in 1806, and Professor Hitchcock didn't even mention that one or take any pictures at all. So anyway, I was just kind of feeling pretty low because I had not found anything to do with the petroglyphs, but I found the NLD. And then this summer, in August, I was really feeling sad about it. I came up from the bottom. There were 3 eagles in that tree. The sun was almost going down. We're supposed to come up with 500 pounds of air for safety purposes, and I was down to 250. And you're not supposed to do that, but I was in shallow water. The sun was going down, and it was almost totally dark, except the sun was shining on this one rock that I was working on. Here we go. This is a video. It's about 2 minutes long, and I'm not sure, hopefully we can show it, but if we can't. Okay, here we go. This summer, August, sun's going down, shining right on this rock. I start seeing this beautiful white quartz right there. Beautiful lines around this black rock. And I thought, wow, see how the sun's shining right on it? The sun was going down and shining right on that rock. And I thought, I have to just look a little bit longer. This just so beautiful with this white quartz. What is here? If I was going to do something, I would do something here. It's such a beautiful rock. after the silt is all taken off, of course. So I'm looking, and this video, I took myself the day after. I found it the day after. I went back exactly the same time of the day, exactly when the sun was going down, so that I could videotape this because I was so amazed. So this particular rock ledge was mostly horizontal. And all of a sudden, I'm looking face to face, just about 8 inches away, and I find this. I found the single petroglyph that I thought I would never find, documented in 1806 and 1807. And I couldn't believe I found that one. So here's my heart, like all sad. See the beautiful quartz? This is beautiful, and it goes up over the top of it and down underneath, and it's just all by itself, just looking at me. And I looked at it, and I had tears in my eyes and my mask, and I said, "You're not what I was looking for, but I'll take you. I'll take you." I was so excited. I can't even begin to tell you. My friend came with me the next day. This is my friend Amy. She's a underwater photographer. And I called her and I'm like, Amy, you gotta come and take this. So Amy came and took some single shots. I did the videotaping. But this is beautiful. And then I went and I uncovered the whole rock. And in my research, it says that this one is near the other one. But you can't get too excited about that because they also said Fort Dummer is near this. And Fort Dummer's like 5 miles down the road. So I wanted to show you that video. That was so exciting for me. I found that this summer. You can imagine how I can't wait to get back in my wetsuit. So let me just see. Okay, so anyway, this is, the visibility underwater is like this. It's so clear now. It's so exciting. And that is one of the single photos. Now, what's really interesting about this petroglyph is the little kind of like feathers here, kind of like a dot for the eyes, no nose, kind of like a little dot for the mouth. It's about 8 inches across. And when I looked at it, I thought, wow, this looks just like the one in Bellows Falls. So back to my research again, and I was really paying a lot of attention to that. And in my research, I did find documentation from 1858 where this gentleman was actually comparing these and how he stated that these were, he felt that this was definitely the work of the same person or same Native American as Bellows Falls. This is the 1807, 1808. Some of my research, I came up with this. This is the actual petroglyph, again, rubbing of the one I found on the right. And the one on the left was chalk enhanced at the time. And it still looks the same. And it's the way that it's, you know, hammered and worked it's just amazing to me. And then there's the one I found side by side with the chalk drawing. And in the rubbing, you can kind of see there was like part of a little bit of the quartz or something through there. But it's exactly, it's the one. See that little, I was so excited about this. So my friend Larry Clark, he is a member. Oh, that's Larry, and I guess he's gotten all kinds of, great Larry. That was great timing. So this is my friend Larry Clark, and Larry is with the Bellows Falls Historical Society, and I'm always finding other things. Larry didn't work with me on the petroglyph find, except once I found this one, Larry has great resources for the history of the Bellows Falls one. So I've been doing a lot of comparing of notes, and Larry drove up with me today. And this is, thanks to Larry, a shot from 1910 of the Petroglyph site in Bellows Falls. And the interesting thing about this is it has, sort of the same little here, and most of the petroglyphs on this site are like that, like the one I found. But the one that I'm continuing to look for is totally different. And I don't think it was done at all by whoever did this one that I found. I believe and I've gone and looked, and I believe so much that this was done by the same people that did the one in the Great Falls in Bellows Falls. But the other thing about it is that I found absolute mention in my documentation from the early 1800s with the one that I'm looking for with the eagles or the thunderbirds. It specifically states that they're carved deeper than the ones in Bellows Falls. And they're so different. They're very, very different. So I had this really weird thing happen yesterday. I'm just going to tell you this. It's so strange how these things keep falling into place. First, I'm going to tell you a real quick story about one day when I was working, the day that I found the petroglyphs. I never really shop at Walmart, but I needed batteries, and it was near where my boat was. So I ran up, and I got my batteries, and I was in line, and there was a man in back of me. And he had on this T-shirt with a beautiful eagle and a bear. And I looked at him, and I said, I love your T-shirt. He said, thank you. He said, I'm Native American. And he said, this T-shirt represents my people. And I said, that's really beautiful. And I said, this would just amaze you. I'm not even sure you'd want to even hear about this, but he cashed out, and I waited for him, and I said, I'm just going to tell you really quickly. You know why I'm here? I'm here to buy batteries, and I'm a scuba diver, and I'm looking for this. And he looked at me, and he's like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, what a strange coincidence. I meet you in the store like this. And he said, I have words of wisdom for you. You go down there, and you try to find this. But don't think of it as finding. Think of it that you want to see it. Keep thinking you want to see it. I said, okay. And his name, I think, was Grey Wolf. So I went down, and I kept thinking, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to see this. And that's what happened. I hope it works for the bigger one. And then I hope I get down there, because I keep saying I want to find it, and I have to stop and say, I have to think about what he said about wanting to see it versus wanting to find it. It might bring good luck. But I had a very strange thing happen yesterday. What's new for me, I guess. But Larry was so kind to print off the copy I needed for today's presentation for me. So I stopped at Larry's house in Bellows Falls, picked it up. 5 minutes later, I'm going down the road, not even 5 minutes from his house. And there's a gentleman that sells antiques. And this just happened yesterday at this time. So I went by, and I was at a stoplight, and I look over, and I see a picture of a Native American. And I thought, whoa, what are the chances of this guy having a Native American picture? So I went through I didn't drive through the red light. I waited till it turned green, parked, and then I walked back. And I walked over, and I was looking at it. And I said, where did you get this? He said, I just got it. He said, I was hired by an attorney to clean out an estate in Connecticut. And he said, this was there. I said, do you know anything about it or where it came from or anything? And he said, no, just that it was in that estate, in that house. And I said, wow. Wow, this is really interesting. I said, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow in Montpelier about Native American petroglyphs that I'm looking for. And that I found. And he said to me, well, I said, how much do you want for this picture? And we talked about it. I said, it's just drawing me close to it for some reason. Yesterday afternoon, on the side of the street, there's this. Well, when I first saw it, and I'm going to show you in a minute, you won't believe how weird this is, or unbelievable, or spiritual, I don't know. I thought he was bent over doing something with vegetation. because I was so focused on trying to figure out, you know, if it was northeastern or plains. This happened yesterday. There's petroglyphs on the rock. And Larry was so kind to just add this to my presentation. This happened yesterday. This was 5 minutes from Larry's house. So, I mean, can you believe it? And this was 5 minutes from Larry's house, just on my way to do some work at my office. And it's like he's moving the vegetation away, and there's water here, to look at the petroglyphs. So then, I've been so busy, and I said, Larry, we gotta find out if this is an actual petroglyph, you know, that it exists, or it was an artist thought of what they would look like. So I got all of Ed's books out, and I'm looking through these books, trying to find before I got here between yesterday and today. But I mean, maybe it's a good sign for me. So anyway, that was yesterday, and I was just so thrilled. So here it is, a winter without much snow, which means there's not going to be as much snow melting, which means there's not going to be as much current, which means I'm going to be able to get in the water sooner, which right now I wish I was in my wetsuit and not in this. And I wish I was underwater right now, but I'm not. So I can't wait. I'm very excited. But as soon as I can get into that water, I am going to try to see that underwater. And if I do see it, I will share it with you again, because I think that this is just so significant. This was above water and is now underwater. 1909, this very special, significant piece of archaeology is underwater. So with that, I will be here for some questions if anybody has any, but I want to thank you so much for coming. Oh, more about the Bellows Falls? So the ones in Bellows Falls, we do have something rather unique here. The Bellows Falls ones, there's a lot more on this wall. And the sad thing about both sites is that Bellows Falls, the majority of those are really covered unnaturally from when they built a bridge. They would have been seen by us today. This amazing thing here, this amazing piece of archaeology and history, more than archaeology, is unnaturally underwater and would have also been above water if it wasn't for the dam. So I don't know. The Bellows Falls ones, I don't know the answer to who exactly did those. Ed, in his books, have theories, and in my research I found theories. And I think this will be another topic coming up. I know that the Brattleboro Historical Society is really interested in doing some in-depth research about that. And so I think there's going to be part 2, 3, 4 maybe of this. Thank you. Yes?
I admire your tedious technique for removing all that sand so slowly, but I wanted to tell you another technique. I worked in water quality and lake management in Connecticut, and we often would be called into a small pond or lake that had silted in. And we had a giant vacuum cleaner underwater thing that sucked out the silt and put it into a holding tank somewhere. If only you had that, an underwater vacuum cleaner.
That's a very good question. And I actually have, I've looked into the permitting required for that. And because there's nothing there except sand and silt, and there's no archaeological structure, I might be able to cover more sand removal this year because of that. So that's, yes, thank you. I've used that method on shipwrecks where we got permits for. Yes?
You talked about horizontal setting. If this were on a horizontal setting, wouldn't it be easier to carve it deeper than if it was on a straight wall?
Yes. I have the answer for that, and that's a good thing that you brought that up. The strange thing is, the one I did find, the single one, is on a horizontal setting. And I thought the same as you. 12 feet long and 8 feet wide, all of those, and carved as deep and as big. I thought exactly the same. And luckily, in my research about 5 or 6 years ago, I found where Dr. Hitchcock didn't say where it was, but he talked about the angle of his camera. And that was such a help to me, because it talked about it being 90 degrees to the horizontal. So I think you're exactly right. I believe it's on a big slab of rock in an angle. Some people think it's on a big single rock. I have a friend from the Brattleboro Historical Society and also a teacher. His name is Joe, and he thinks it's a big single rock sitting in the cove. But I don't think so. But he could be right and I could be wrong. We'll find out.
Back in 1997, someone showed me a face like the ones in Bellows Falls and the one that you uncovered in Springfield. It's on a rock behind the elementary school. But is that, has anybody looked at that and said, oh yeah, it's been done by the same people?
In the back of the elementary school above water? That leaves me out. Everything I find is underwater, but that's very interesting, because if it could be tied in together, wow. Let me take a look at that. I should look after. Oh my gosh.
That's really pretty remarkable.
Maybe you could pass one of these around. I'll look after so we can continue. Okay, that's it. I'm going to look on land from now on too. That's interesting. I think other people after this presentation may want to see that, and I'll come look at it again. Any other questions?
Have you looked behind the duct tape on the...
No, I just got this yesterday. And Larry and I showed Larry, look at the back of this, everybody. I mean, we could unveil it here if anybody wants to take it apart that has expertise. This is the back of this picture I got yesterday. And you could come look at it after, but I mean, what are the chances of finding a picture 5 minutes from Larry's house yesterday, the day before I'm doing this, and it has, I mean, I focused on him, and I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. And I'm really curious. It looks like there could be another picture behind it, too. Well, I want to thank you. I know a lot of you have to get back, and I want to thank you so much for your attention. And if you have a few extra minutes, I could, yes, one last question.
Where are the Hitchcock photographs?
Well, there's some in Amherst, a file in Amherst. Oh, you mean on here?
Yeah, the ones where you finally saw
Oh, okay.
The very first one.
Yeah, right in the beginning. There's 3, no, actually there's 5 total. These are actual photos. And I guess I should tell you real quick, I'll just say, the glacial striations are critical. And I've been following glacial striations because the glacial striations are key to my success, except that they all have glacial striations. But thank you again for your attention. And if I find the other one, if you'd like me to come back, if I see the other one, I'll be back. Thank you.
You heard that there's water some would die to find in a well in some forest can turn more than to wine. No, not sure I believe it. I'm not sure that I do. But lately I have been grasping for something to pull me through.